Buckles, and today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about neural networks, which are programs designed to replicate the function of a human brain, and I'm going to be analyzing them through the game of chess. So recently, you may have heard of a scandal involving Grandmaster Hans Neiman and Grandmaster World Champion Magnus Carlson. In this match, Hans Neiman defeated Carlson, and Carlson soon resigned from the tournament. Rumors began to spread that Neiman might be cheating, and that's why Carlson resigned, and eventually he did confirm that he resigned due to belief that he was cheating. But this may lead you to wonder, how on earth do you even cheat at chess? Did he switch out some pieces when they weren't looking? No, that would be ludicrous. How you cheat is by getting assistance from computers who have more computational ability than humans at playing chess. And I sought, with my research, to learn how chess can be used to analyze the varying effectiveness of different types of neural networks and to see how they should be incorporated going forward. When chess neural networks are programmed, there are really four main types that are used, one of which is hard coding. There's also generic reinforcement, genetic programs, and ground-up programs. And the first one I really want to talk about is hard coding. And one very prominent hard coding chess algorithm is Deep Blue, which was created by International Business Machines, IBM's researchers, in an attempt to defeat the world champion, Garry Kasparov. And in this attempt to defeat Kasparov, they made a program that could create and analyze positions so fast that it was 10 million positions per second. It has multiple minutes to think per move, and this is such an extraordinarily high number that it's almost incomprehensible. And yet still, Kasparov was able to convincingly beat this machine, winning 4-2. But the IBM researchers, while discouraged, were still convinced that they could do better and that they could improve upon this and defeat Garry Kasparov. And so 1 year later, they were able to optimize their program, employ more chips, and make it so that it could analyze 100 million positions per second. That is tenfold the original. That's absolutely insane. And even with this insane increase in ability, it was still only able to defeat Kasparov by a single point in their match. And IBM researcher Su, he said that he felt even though this was a landmark for AI, and people were shocked, he thought this went more about humans and the ability to learn than it did about Deep Blue and AI. And so in order to incorporate learning, Google has actually created a program called AlphaZero that uses learning with a method known as generic reinforcement. Generic reinforcement replicates positive and negative reinforcement in that it gives a positive value of 1 if the program wins and a negative 1 to the program if it loses, and tells the program that it wants a high number so that it can learn and grow and garner more strength. On top of this, Google used their top supercomputer in this algorithm alongside exceptional hard coding as a base, because there's hard coding as a base and it is then taught from there. So they had phenomenal hard coding run on a top supercomputer with learning. And all of this paired together very nicely to create a program that became the best chess artificial intelligence in the world. However, it did not remain that way, and before it there was also another champion, and that is Stockfish. Stockfish is open source and crowdfunded, meaning it is not able to run on the insane supercomputers that the likes of AlphaZero is, but it does have a superior method of learning that allows for more learning and more adaptability. And this method of learning is known as genetic replication, and it replicates evolution, genetics, and natural selection by starting with a base case that branches down, and then natural selection chooses the best ones of those, and those branch down further. And again, they do this until they go way down the line and have a program that has evolved from the original program, allowing it to learn and become superior. And even without the top supercomputer, in 2019, 2 years after AlphaZero first became the main champion in chess AI, Stockfish was able to overcome AlphaZero and defeat it. and it is still to this day the very best chess AI. And you may also be wondering how good this is compared to humans and the current world champion. This program would defeat the human world champion with half the time 100 times out of 100. There is zero comparison at this point with the ability. But these are not the only types of learning. There's another type that is fairly new and has fairly limited research. And you may be able to tell that the research is pretty limited when they haven't even had the time to make a high-quality logo. It's still very blurry and very pixelated. And that's because they devoted all their time to actually making a quality program. And this program, unlike the others, is not based around any form of hard programming. They started fully from the bottom and worked it from the ground all the way up. They didn't even teach this program the rules of chess. They made it learn it on its own by analyzing games played by top players. And what this allowed for was for very advanced learning that was able to surpass the world champion human player, Magnus Carlson, in playing strength. However, it still has not superseded Stockfish or AlphaZero in playing strength. So this may lead you to believe that the genetics must be the best, right? Because Stockfish uses it, and Stockfish is still to this day the best. But this fails to take into account a couple of things. The first of which is the rate of progression. Stockfish had a very stark increase to begin with, but it has plateaued off. And it's still increasing, but it's very gradual. Whereas the likes of deep chess and these ground-up approaches have been able to maintain very steady, fast improvement. Another thing that the assumption of genetics being the best doesn't take into account is peak potential. Because of the fact that Stockfish still relies on hard programming, and then when it evolves, it is far better than the original, but any flaw in that hard programming will still remain at the end of the evolution, no matter how much better it is than where it began. And because of that, the learning method of deep chess does not have these two drawbacks and could actually likely be a very good way for neural networks to be incorporated in the future. And so this may lead you to wonder, well, how should these really be utilized? And one way that they actually could be utilized is with a combination approach, where you start from the ground up using the learning method of deep chess. Then you evolve it with the learning method of Stockfish, and finally you teach it with the learning method of AlphaZero. This sounds very simple, but the reason it hasn't been done or done to much success is because it's very, very hard to do. It is doable, but it takes years of expertise to be able to become proficient at any of these one categories. So being able to do all of them well enough to combine them would be very, very difficult. But this combination could lend itself to be very useful to a wide variety of problems that are similar to chess. And chess is good for analyzing this because of how simple chess is. It's very simple. Every single position has a set number of possible moves with a set number of pieces that can move a set number of ways. What this means is that the rate of change grows exponentially, and so the neural network is able to weave through that and choose the best way to go forward. Other examples of where this is utilizable is with something known as the traveling salesman problem, which is illustrated here. It's where you have a variety of scattered points, and you think, okay, how can a salesman get from each of these locations in the most efficient path possible, leading back to the start? We do not have a good way that is optimized to find this. So the incorporation of neural networks would be a very good way and has already improved our methods for doing this. Another area in which neural networks like this can be used, which is probably widely applicable to all of you, is with ad personalization in Google. People often say stuff like, wow, they must be listening to me. Like, how do they know this? How is the ads always what I'm talking about? Well, that is because they have used neural networks, and so they look at your search terms and they see, well, you may be interested in these set number of things that could lead to interest in these things and these things and these things. So it's that same branching out that neural networks can more accurately weave through to find good results much more efficiently than hard programming your way through to it. But this still leads to one question of, does this pose a threat? Should we be worried about incorporating neural networks in so many areas if there's a threat of them becoming sentient? Because this is commonly portrayed in media and movies that they might become sentient. And so is this really an issue? And to this, I would say look at a Roomba. A Roomba runs on AI. It meanders around a room, but it's very clearly not sentient. And in the same way, when we program it, while we program it to learn, we can control what it is able to learn. So in the instance of chess AIs, they are only able to learn chess. In the instance of Google's ad AIs, they're only able to learn ads. And so as long as we keep programming these AIs to only use what we want them to, there will not be a threat of them becoming sentient. And currently, we would not know where to begin to program sentience into an AI. However, it could be researched and it could still be developed. I don't think that is a good way to go, and I do think neural networks should stay in the realm of optimizing solutions without gaining sentience, and we can prevent that. Thank you. Here are my references. Questions will be saved for the end.